steps from here and now to other worlds. And Ronnie Lajoie is a past chair of the National Space Society Chapter's Assembly and represents the thought for many years from the grassroots. Chris Pankratz is the Assistant Secretary of the National Space Society and a member of the Board of Directors. And you're just going to assist Ronnie? Okay. Okay. Chris is very modest. Ronnie?
Ronnie, thank you very much for coming. Not yet. I have a half time as well. I'd like to tell you a story with a happy ending. What's my name? Is this better?
Yes.
Oh, be this close? Okay. I'd like to tell you a story with a happy ending. Began at least 3 years ago. That's when I joined. And it's a story about the direction of our society. Where do we want to go? It began in earnest 3 years ago at a strategic planning meeting that was set up by Karen Ramel, who I don't believe is in the audience. That got us on track. The next 2 years were coordinated by Christopher Pankratz, who's sitting there. The society, our volunteers, our chapters have been waiting for our leadership to provide us not only general direction, which we have provided, and we provide in every issue of Ad Astra, where do we want to go and what do we think we have to do, but very specific direction. And we've been working very hard on that. And so in the last strategic planning meeting of 1999, the number one goal, the number one item at the top of our strategic list of things to do in the past year was to define in writing what we already knew in our hearts and what we had been saying verbally, our philosophy, our policies, and our roadmap for the future. I'm going to talk about our encapsulation of our philosophy into words that you can use in your mission to spread the word, spread the gospel, as you will, of who we are, what do we stand for, what do we want to do, and why. Could we get the machine turned on? This is a product of the entire leadership of the National Space Society, including the board of directors, the chapter leaders, and the board of advisors. We created a document called the NSS Statement of Philosophy. You can get copies of this at the ISDC. We have a copier here, and we have the masters. Great, fantastic. This is your copy. It is your working copy. We will create brochures and nice handouts public in the future, hopefully in the future. This is your copy, so you can start working on this right now as soon as you get back. And number one is to spread this among, if you're a chapter leader, spread it among your chapter members. These two very important items came from earlier strategic planning seminars and retreats. To summarize in a very short statement, what are we about? Our vision, people living and working and thriving communities beyond Earth. One statement, one sentence. What do we want to see happen? That's what we want to see happen. We're talking about lots of people, not 6 floating above the Earth, but millions of people spread across the galaxy. NSS mission. What is our purpose? To promote social, technological, and political change to advance the day when humans will live and work in space. We are an organization about change. We are here, we're spending our volunteer hours, our money, because we're not satisfied with the status quo, and we want to change that. The question that we get asked a lot is why? Why are you doing this? Why are you spending your own time, your own money? Why are you traveling once a year to a faraway land? What we've done is we've done our best to encapsulate that into words. These words are very important. They've been reviewed by at least 30 or 40 people, about 4 times. And I would say at this stage they are final enough for our first draft. We want your feedback too. But this is the best that your leadership has been able to come up with, and we believe that you will accept that deal. Number 1, what is the most important reason why we're doing what we're doing? We think the very survival of the human species and the biosphere of the earth is at stake here. We're doing nothing less than providing life insurance for the entire planet. I don't think I want to read all of that, but I'll touch on a few notes. And, our human species population is growing. We have our threats that we've created ourselves. We have threats from nature. We have threats from outside the planet, all of which can affect us and can affect our biosphere as well. We share this planet with, if I could borrow from Carl Sagan, billions and billions of species. In fact, there's billions and billions of life forms directly beneath us from this hotel. We have become the caretakers for this planet. And we, because of that, need to be able to ensure the survival of that planet. The next important reason for why we're doing what we're doing is growth. Beyond just the very survival, we want to grow. We want to grow. It's in our genetic makeup. It's something that life does. It grows, it multiplies. We are an extension of life. We are an extension of all life on Earth. We want to create new habitats for that life. We have options. If we remain on this planet, we will eventually have to control our population or shrink it and other such nasty constraints. The universe is vast. There's no reason why we need to do that. There are places we can go, and eventually we will acquire the technology to create new worlds for our species and for other life forms on our planet. We also have the psychological reason for growth, which Bob Zubrin and others in the past have expounded on very eloquently, about the need for a frontier, the need for a place where people can go when they feel trapped and constrained by their current society. And this universe is vast, and definitely we will find places to escape from people who need to escape rather than create urban violence. Yes. Number 3, most important reason why we're doing what we're doing. It's the nature of our species, and human species, to want to improve the quality of our lives, and especially to provide for a better future for our children, so we can live with them later on in life. There are 3 subgroups to that. Number 1 is improving the standard of living on this planet. Even for people who don't want to go to space, we want to improve the quality of life on this planet. And there are resources out in space that we can bring. We're already bringing photons, data-packed photons down from satellites, thousands of satellites orbiting this planet, which has allowed us to have nearly instantaneous communication with the other side of this planet. Well, just 50 years ago, we were lucky to know what was happening in the next town. That is a resource. That is something that has definitely improved the quality of our life from a political standpoint. There is energy out in space. There is lots of energy out in space. We are just beginning stages of extracting that energy to provide more energy for this planet, which is the need for energy is constantly growing as we improve the quality of our life. And there are resources. There are material resources. One that is frequently mentioned about the moon is helium-3. Eventually, we will figure out the fusion technology to harvest that, to acquire that, and we can go to the moon and get there. Number 2, economic opportunity. For those of us, and I assume that's the people in this room who want to go into space, there's money to be made. There's an expansion of our mind and our wallets to be made in space. Personal growth, the growth for providing opportunities for our children. The universe is vast. I'm not talking about what's going to happen tomorrow in this generation. This is going to take a long time. But the universe is vast, and God willing, our species will survive long enough to get all the way out there and to take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there. Number 3 we've labeled technological development. What we mean here is, this is something of a safety issue. The access to space provides means for us to test potentially beneficial but potentially hazardous processes. For example, nuclear fusion and antimatter, either electricity generation or propulsion generation. We know already it's very difficult to even get approval to test a nuclear engine, even though 30 years ago we had one running, and the technology is very simple. Once we have cheaper access to space, which we may have to do by chemical means, if necessary, we can offload such perceived and real dangerous processes, debug that stuff on another world, say the moon, and bring it as required either for access to space or for energy production on this planet. And there's other things we've mentioned as a possible biological experimentation. Access to space provides us with this capability. The fourth reason, it's there, curiosity. Why are we doing it? Because we want to know. That's another human nature thing. It's probably more than just human nature. Certainly, we want to know what's on the other side. We want to know what's in the next galaxy. And sometimes we're just going to have to go ourselves to find out. There's a limit what we can do with cameras. That's the why. I hope you agree with all those whys, because I want you to use those words when you go out and talk to your public and to your members. The next question that we are occasionally asked is, well, who are we? What do we stand for? We have a vision. We tell people why we're doing what we're doing, and then we start telling them how. And I won't get into the how details. That's the next talk. But there are limits that we will place on how we do what we're doing, and that gets into our principles. And actually the top bold quote belongs with the bottom. I apologize for that. These are our principles. These are things that we will not bend 1 inch for. Human rights. NSS shall promote the principle of fundamental rights of every human being. How does that apply in practical terms? For example, if a country, I will not name a country, decides that the best way, the cheapest way for them to create a moon base, for example, is with slave labor, we will not endorse that. And depending on the severity of that, we will actively protest that. But we will clearly not endorse such an action. We will also not endorse the torture of people, the ethics related to that. NSS shall observe, practice, and promote ethical conduct. What does that mean? For example, Company A, has been provided a land grant on the moon to harvest ice from the lunar ball. Yay. Company B decides, gee, it wants to steal or sabotage Company A's hardware. That, we believe, is unethical, and we will not endorse that. And again, depending on the severity of the issue, we will actively protest that. C, settlement. This goes to our vision and mission statement, but we felt it was important to get it into our principle. This is something we will not change the society for. NSS shall actively pursue and promote human settlement beyond Earth. Scientific inquiry and exploration are important precursors to settlement. But we are about settlement, human settlement beyond Earth. If people ask what's the NSS about, it's about human settlement beyond Earth. We want to go and we want to settle space. And finally, D, within the bounds of A, B, and C, within the bounds of human rights, ethics, and human settlement of space, NSS shall promote and support any and all methods and practices that support achievement of our vision. It's a catch-all, but it's an important catch-all. The first three we will not bend at all. And the specifics of D really get into what we have labeled our beliefs. Our beliefs are things that, in our opinion, the opinion of the National Space Society leadership, we feel these are the best policies and approaches for achieving our mission, for going about the house, which we'll be discussing soon. However, if another organization decides to have a different approach that does not violate human rights, that does not violate, is not considered unethical, we will not oppose that. So, number one, individual rights. NSS believes that space development and settlement will occur most efficiently and human prosperity will be best assured if every human being is given the freedom of thought and action. Today, communist nations do not have that ability. If a communist nation decides to settle the moon, but they treat their people okay, we will not protest that. We may even endorse that. B, unrestricted access to space. NSS believes that space development and settlement will occur most effectively, and humanity's survival and growth will be best assured if every human being is allowed the opportunity to travel, live, and work in outer space. That doesn't mean we're going to provide a free ticket. It means every person has the right to purchase a ticket, the right to apply for a ticket, the right to win a raffle ticket to go. C, personal property rights. This is something near and dear to our hearts. NSS believes that space development and settlement will occur most efficiently, and humanity's survival and growth will be best assured if every human being is allowed the opportunity to own property in space and or other worlds. That's what we call it. In space, yes. Places off this planet. That is a major issue right now because the Moon Treaty, as it's called loosely, prevents that. It's only been ratified by 6 nations, but it is there. And many people's view, ratified or not, in the United Nations view, it is still an official policy of the United Nations. The Outer Space Treaty only forbids governments from having claims to property in space. It makes no mention of commercial or personal ownership of property in space. And that is one that almost every nation has signed for. If, for example, the only way we can go and live in space is to rent it, the difference between renting and owning, it still gets us there. It essentially goes back to the Middle Ages, where you basically pay a lord to live on your property. We will go along with that. D, free market economies. NSS believes that space development and settlement will occur most efficiently and our prosperity will be best assured if the free market drivers of competition and profit are used. This is another issue even within our own country. Not everyone believes this. For example, some people believe only the government should be allowed to push this forward and not necessarily have it as a commercial enterprise. The leadership of the National Space Society believes that the commercial process is our best way to get this done quickest. However, we believe, and we've seen this happen recently with X-33, that there is a role for government. And the role for government in this arena has to do with the funding of high-risk research and development. Investors, the way a company works is they have a great idea and they think they can make money on it. Well, they need money first. They go out to potential investors. Just like you, when you go to a bank, you go shopping and say, well, what's the interest rate? You want your money, you want to make some profit on it. Investors, the higher the risk, the more money the investor wants. And unfortunately, the more money they want soon. It's the exact opposite. They do not want to wait 50 years to get the money back. So we need the government to help industry to reduce the risk or the perceived risk of technology so that private industry can take the next steps. We can raise that revenue, that investment money, and then go about it. F, international cooperation. We believe, the National Space Society leadership believes, that space development and settlement will occur most efficiently, and our survival and prosperity will be best ensured if nations cooperate with space, research and development, and leave competition to individual companies. This is not a principle, it is our belief. If the United States decided to claim the moon, or to do something utilized, we shouldn't say that, because that's not just true. 12 minutes. I'll be done. If the United States decides to set up a moon base on its own, that is actually within the bounds of the Outer Space Treaty permitted. They own their hardware. That is sovereign territory. Their hardware is. The moon is, but the hardware is. That's fine with us. We don't believe that's likely without international cooperation. But it's fine, it's okay with us. G, democratic values. We believe our growth and prosperity will best ensured if the fundamentals of democracy are applied and incorporated by space settlements. This is a separate issue from something mentioned earlier about how things happen. This is what these societies do. When you have a space settlement, what type of government, this might be 100 years out, but what type of government do they have? We believe it's in the best interest of the human species survival that those settlements have democratic governments. If they come up with something new, and that's one of the reasons we want to have a frontier, we will not oppose that unless it goes against human rights. H, enhancement of Earth's ecology. NSS believes that one of the goals and benefits of space development and settlement is to restore and enhance the biosphere of the planet Earth. We are already doing that to some extent with missions to planet Earth, monitoring the environment. We believe that is something that is worth doing and should continue to do. We are environmentalists. One of our goals is to protect our planet, our species. And lastly, but not leastly, protection of new environments. This is off the planet Earth. We believe that space development and settlement should be pursued in a manner that safeguards alien life forms, if and when we find them, natural wonders, and historical monuments. We don't want shoppers going and ripping apart the Apollo 11 lander and reselling it on the planet. This is important to us as well. I think that's the end of the talk. I wish I had more eloquent things to say. This was kind of a rushed up thing. Since we have some time, let's open it to questions. This is... Okay. I guess in summary, what I want to say is this is our society's philosophy. I hope you agree. And I hope you take this document back to your homes, to your chapters, and spread this gospel that we have. We've worked hard to write it down. These are things that we felt we've always known, but we wanted to get it down on paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronnie. Ronnie described what he said as sort of prosaic, and he's almost apologizing for it. I think it's a great achievement that we can talk about space in terms that we now realize are prosaic. We're talking about that these are real things that are really likely to happen, that really affect us in ways that we can understand and contemplate. And I think it was a great achievement for all those who spent so much time to try to put down on paper what we've all sort of understood at the back of our mind. But now we have something that's systematic, we can refer people to it, and we can refresh our own understandings and beliefs. It will also help us when we go out and try to spread our message.